free men need to be able to protect their families. It's really sad to see people hurt, livelihoods destroyed, even homes destroyed, just to make a political point. Free men take action when churches face heartbreaking attacks. And while cowards stand idle, free men run towards the sound of gunshots when children are in danger. I'm so thankful for free men who stand ready with the tools of liberty.
Hey y'all, welcome back to CrossPolitic on the FLF Feast Network. It's Idaho Day.
Idaho Day.
But Idaho Day is a good day for you too, because you can kind of learn how to talk to your legislators in your state, how you should be thinking about your legislative session in your state.
Fire them all.
Our legislative session just happened. We just want to shut down the government. That's all.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
That's all.
True.
And so our legislative session actually started Monday of this week.
Right.
And so we're calling our legislators. We're trying to figure out what's going on in legislative session, what we expect, what they expect, and all that stuff.
We're calling the legislators we kind of like.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'll invite legislators we don't like on here. They just likely won't come.
Yeah,
they're welcome.
Van Gelder Technologies is a U.S.-based custom software development company specializing in cross-platform mobile applications, web applications, and desktop programs. Leveraging open-source frameworks, they quickly and efficiently build custom software solutions that are tailor-made to fit your specific needs. There's no need for New Christendom companies to be content with offering subpar mobile or web experiences. Van Gelder Technologies can help you build better software for the glory of God. You can learn more, view examples of their work, and get in touch at vangelder.tech. That's VANGELDER.TECH. Van Gelder Technologies, where technology and tradition meet.
Message.
All right. Our first guest up today, we're really grateful to have back with us our friend Heather Scott. She's been on the show a number of times.
Yep.
She needs to be a regular.
She's an American biologist, businesswoman, politician serving as a Republican member of the Idaho House of Representatives from the 1st District, way up north.
Can we call it a joyful warrior, too?
Yeah. Heather, thanks for coming back on CrossPolitic.
Thank you for having me. My district is now 2A, just so you know.
We redistricted in the state of Idaho.
Oh, we got some illegals too?
No.
We did, and I'm not sure I updated my website. So 2A, that's an easy one to remember.
Okay, 2A.
It's still way
Second
up north.
Amendment.
Yeah,
district.
It's
the Second Amendment district.
She's in the Second Amendment. Heather,
It's the best.
Thanks so much for serving our state. And again, thanks for coming back on the show. I think when I ask you about sort of a number of questions about this new legislative session, I wanted to start off with asking you about your take. I believe that Governor Little
Monday.
Just sort of issued a kind of a state of the state address of sorts to kick off the legislative session. What was your take on that?
Well, you didn't read my Twitter?
Oh, maybe I did.
Maybe that's why I'm on the show. I don't know. Well, just to be kind here, I'm sure he's doing the best he can. Unfortunately, taking more federal money, and that's literally what his agenda is about, taking more federal money is not going to make this state better. No matter what we do with it, no matter if we just do great things with it, right? We just give everybody money in that. It's not going to fix the national debt. That's our taxpayer dollars. Our taxes keep going up, up, and up. And so to just borrow more of that from the federal government on a year that's coming up, election year, to just give out all kinds of, things across the state, it's just not a good plan. In my opinion, it's not a good vision for Idaho.
I was following your wrong account. That's why I haven't been getting any updates from you. So is it Heather Scott ID?
That is where it's at. Yes,
that's where you get the spicy stuff, Knox.
Well, I got to keep people guessing. So if you listen to the speech, he used the word investment. We're going to invest in this and invest in that. That means we're going to tax for this and tax for that. It's using your money to give you stuff. And so that's
socialism. I mean, that's what socialism is taking other people's money, your money, everybody's money, and then buying you off with programs.
But he's not going to be able to do that, right, Heather? Because you guys are there.
Oh, wait, you're in North Idaho? You didn't get the memo?
No.
Oh no.
So, the state North Idaho is kind of an anomaly in the state. It is definitely, the politics in the North is way different than the politics in the East or the South. And so we're basically outnumbered down here. So I'm sure a lot of this is going to go through.
Wow.
So North Idaho, far more conservative?
Far more.
Wow.
Far more Republican.
So we know that basically Governor Little's his plan is to try to get a bunch of stuff through that's going to make us spend a bunch more money, higher taxes, et cetera. What are you hoping to accomplish this legislative session, Heather?
So I actually, for the first time, is super excited about the session because, as you know, we've launched the Freedom Caucus in Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
We have a team of people. We have a network across the nation of Freedom Caucuses, and we do have one paid staff member that helps us from the State Freedom Caucus network. So we are actually launching our vision and plan this Thursday for Capital Clarity. We're going to share what that is, but I'll give you a sneak peek of it. Obviously, fiscal responsibility, transparency, and accountability. And that's what we're not seeing with the current governor. The money, to try to follow what's going on with the money and how it's getting transferred from account to account. It almost seems like it's purposely being non-transparent. So definitely we've got some legislation to expose some of that. And ultimately we want to lower taxes. We are sitting on extra money, and I don't have those numbers in front of me, but there is just no reason why the state is holding on to your money when it can return it back to you. And these one-time returns, they're not getting it. We need long-term tax relief. People, their property taxes are unbelievable. I've had so many calls this year on property taxes. There's no reason our state should be paying a grocery tax. None of the surrounding states charge grocery taxes. So fiscal responsibility, we plan to try to work to reduce some of these taxes.
Heather, the property tax thing is interesting to me because I think that's the most wicked tax that we're assessed here. But it's also, to me, the most hardest tax to deal with because you have the county and city lobbying organizations that are probably the most powerful down in Boise and will fight very hard against getting rid of property taxes. How do you begin to untangle that mess and actually eliminate property taxes in total?
So we actually had a bill a couple years ago to get rid of it total, and how that would affect the sales tax. Obviously, they'd make up the difference. It was net neutral. Yeah. But we have got to stop exactly what you're saying. There's association of counties, association of cities, association of county clerks, sheriffs. There's all kinds of associations, and they come lobby against the citizens a lot of times. So last year I passed a bill. I passed a bill through committee. It died on the floor by a couple votes. That basically said you cannot use taxpayer money to join these groups that are basically out there lobbying against you. So that obviously failed. So we have bills. We also, for the first time last year, we passed a bill that put all the contracts online. So now you can see the memorandums of understanding and agreement and all these kind of backdoor agreements that nobody really knows about. They've never been public. They're now public on the state controller's site, where you can go see who's got a contract with who's making deals with who behind the scenes. So those are a couple ways to expose it. But ultimately, it is going to take the people to say enough is enough. Yeah. And I don't know that they're quite there yet.
Heather, you how can people find your email? You do an email list and you let everybody know what's going on in Boise. How can everybody sign up for your email?
So, you know what? I'm going to tell you, I didn't set that up ahead of time, but you can text me. Don't text me to my work number, or maybe they can contact your station. You can collect.
You should just tell them find you on Twitter. Don't give your phone number out.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
My phone number is everywhere, but they can text me and say, "I want to be on your list."
Okay.
I've basically have been very strategic about my list.
Yeah.
So people that were on it, they had a chance to confirm. If they did not see that email, they got booted off. So I started fresh with
Oh, I see.
people that are engaged, and that means you maybe didn't read an email you got in the past.
Yeah.
but
Gabe's like, what happened?
I'll make sure you get on it because I just sent one out, which is pretty good.
So
with my predictions.
Yeah. Okay. Because I want to talk about that, but I looked up the tax surplus that we have, and it says $99 million in 2023. So
$1 billion in surplus,
right?
In tax collection.
That's surplus. So that's over what they expected.
Wow.
But there's definitely a lot of money hiding around if you get the budget and start going through the budget. And that's it's just unfair that you don't really get to see the true stuff. But there is a lot of money that's been moving around. Let's just say that.
Well, and here's the deal. Like if also, I think we were talking about the budget a little bit, the federal budget. And one of the things that if you want to grow your nation or you want people to be able to produce, they need that money. Like they're the ones right?
They don't want it. They don't want it to grow. They want to destroy this nation.
Well, that doesn't make me feel good about our governor. Give us back our money so we can make things that are good for other people, and we can have more money to give and be profitable.
He's going to make it good for you. You just fall in line and get your, vax and wear your mask, and he'll get you something.
Heather,
you got to just get on the bandwagon.
So Heather, let's turn this into a more positive conversation.
Hold on. You just had your day 2 now of back to business. How was day 1, and what should we expect to happen?
All right, let me tell you some good news.
Okay.
We had our very first bill today in committee, and the bill changed the word fetus to unborn child.
Oh, okay.
I don't have it in front of me. It's like unborn baby, so that is good news. It's driving the left crazy. That's good news.
What's this bill?
It's just got a number. I think it's like 318 or 319. It should just have popped up on the state site about an hour ago.
Okay.
Or maybe it's not even up there yet, but it'll be out in the next hour or so.
Okay.
And it's a good one.
Is this changing that language like in all of our legal documents, or what is that?
All through code. It will now be an unborn baby or unborn child.
Yeah.
It's not a fetus anymore.
Wow.
If it passes, it's got to go through the system, but it will pass out of committee. It's a pretty conservative committee. So we'll see. So that's some good news.
So we're just translating. Is that what happened? We're going to translate from Latin to English.
Well, it's just being more truthful. It's more than a fetus. It's an unborn child.
Yeah, preborn children bill.
Preborn child.
381.
Yeah,
that's really great.
So that's good.
Heather, is there any other good news?
Yeah. We've got some bills to address pornography in libraries again, pornography on phones for children. We have an anti-SLAPP bill that's coming out that will stop frivolous lawsuits in the state. We've got some gun legislation dealing with leased properties in the Supreme Court's recent decision. We have some fun stuff.
Wait, talk about that one.
Well, if you followed Senator Herndon's lawsuit up in North Idaho.
Sandpoint.
Yeah. He told us about this before.
He did.
Yeah. So there's they decided that if they lease out property to a private venue, they can say no guns.
If the county does lease out property, right? It's like a public property.
County or city.
Yeah.
And so he challenged that. It went to the Supreme Court. The ruling did not go in his favor, but we think we have a fix for that. So he's got legislation to address that, so that you don't lose your God-given rights just because a lease changes. It's still public property.
Yeah.
So that's going to come through. There's lots of good bills. You're going to see all kinds of stuff this year, and you're going to see a quick session, is my guess, because people are going to want to get out of here.
Yeah. Heather,
it's an election year.
Yeah, it's true. Heather, one of the big things that's been running through a number of conservative-ish Republican states is the whole school choice thing. I understand that I think there is a school choice bill being presented, and my concern, of course, I believe in the right of parents to choose their education for their children. I believe that we should have our money, keep our money, back to the property tax and the high taxes thing. We ought to keep our money. I shouldn't have to pay for public schools that I don't want to use for my kids. Yeah. I am very concerned, though, about a lot of these bills, which are basically more socialism, though, taking more money from more people in order to then just redistribute that to me. And so I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that whole issue and the particular bill that I think is going to be presented this session?
We've tried to get universal school choice, real school choice, where parents get to make the decision where they're going to send their kids. They get the money. It's a huge lift in this state. Like I said, the politics in a state it's just not, the school unions are huge. The lobbyists are huge. It's a big lift in this state. It shouldn't be. But like many people do not realize, a study just came out, and Idaho Republicans are the sixth most liberal Republicans across this country. So you're going to get a school choice bill, and it's going to be a really watered down version. And I don't know what exactly it's going to look like. I don't know that we'll be able to fight it. I mean, I just, if you vote against it on an election year, you hate children. If you say we want a better bill, we try it, we lose every time. So I think we might just say this year, let's just get something, and we'll try to make it better in the future. That's maybe the best we're going to get.
Interesting.
But it won't. My guess, I haven't seen it yet, but it's not going to be what you're thinking school choice should be.
Okay.
But it'll be called school choice
right.
for sure.
No, I figured I figured as much. Well, Heather, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your service of our state and your friendship. We really appreciate you, and we're praying for you.
Yes.
And hopefully we can talk to you again before too long.
That'd be great. Call me anytime.
Reach
Thank
out
you.
whenever you want. Yeah,
all right.
absolutely.
Thanks, Heather.
All right. Bye.
Bye now. If you're a fan of CrossPolitic or the Fight Laugh Feast Network, then surely you know we have a merch store, right? Rowdy Christian Merch is your one-stop shop for everything CrossPolitic merchandise. You can get all the sweatshirts that Knox wears on the show every day, flaunting before... Is that true?
No.
Oh, never mind.
I got one.
You can get some of the sweatshirts that Knox wears on the show every day, flaunting his freedom in front of us who don't have as many sweatshirts as he does. We've got T-shirts, hoodies, hats, but we've also got specialty items like backpacks and mugs and coffee.
And flannels.
Oh, and flannels. That's right. AirPod cases.
Those have been selling pretty well.
Visit Rowdy Christian Merch at rowdychristian.com. That's rowdychristian.com, and buy that next gift or a little something for yourself. Again, that's rowdychristian.com. Valentine's Day is right around the corner, y'all.
Yeah.
I mean, that's true. Nothing says I love you
like some rowdy clothing.
Like a Fight Laugh Feast hoodie. You know what I'm saying? Or a trucker hat or something like
that.
Come
on, ladies.
All right. Well, we're very grateful to have another guest on the line. I think Sage Dixon is with us. He's a Republican Idaho State Representative since 2014. Maybe he's representing District 1 in the BC. We don't know if this is accurate.
It 1A, B, C, D? What?
Sage, thanks for joining us on CrossPolitic.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be with you.
And what district are you with?
I am District 1 and I am Seat B.
All right, we got that. We got that one right.
The redistricting thing is just confusing us.
We just we just talked to Heather Scott, and she's now 2A, the Second Amendment district.
Right. Somewhat appropriate, perhaps.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Sage, want to ask you a few questions about First of all, your impression of Governor Little's State of the State address that kind of kicked off the legislative session, and then what you're seeing as some of the maybe the big issues or big fights that are coming up this session.
Right. It was a very interesting State of the State speech, considering that halfway through he sat down and there was a video played. And I just thought from a professionalism standpoint, that was very awkward. It was difficult sitting in our chambers with the Senate and all the other elected officials in the Supreme Court, and we were just watching a video on the screen, and instead of having the governor speak to us, as has happened in the past. So I'm not quite sure what drove that decision, but it was strange in my opinion.
Yeah.
It also seemed to be just this staccato repetition of how much money he's going to spend and the things that he has accomplished. He's kind of hanging his hat on still, and that became kind of a wave of spending that was hitting us. And many of us were kind of starting to fidget in our seats a little bit, at least the folks around me. We as House leadership had a press conference after the governor's speech and gave our version of what that budget looks like. We had our staff go through and where the governor was saying it was a 2.2 increase, we in our press conference relayed to the public that it was actually a 7.7% increase.
Ooh. Wow.
And that there were some fund shifting games going on to make it look a lot lower.
Wow. Okay. Do you think that this is it likely that there's going to be a fight over his budget priorities, or is it basically just going to get shoved through?
So there'll be a fight over some of it. The speaker is against some of it, which always helps, within the legislature to have leadership pushing back. I'm sure there's some of our members that'll be pushing for it. There was some good in there as well. We finished funding the bridge repair tranche. It was a third tranche of dollars going into repairing all our aging bridges, which is, I've been hearing about that for 10 years. And so it's good to address those infrastructure things. There were good parts of it, even the school funding on facilities. In our district, there's a lot of aging buildings that they just can't raise the money for. So it's appropriate to put dollars into those infrastructure type things. But there were a lot of new dollars asked for. And that's where some of the battle will begin.
Yeah, like a $2 billion.
Yeah, that was quite a large number to hear. I don't even sure where all that's
for
going.
education infrastructure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so some of these things, again, they're little games that are played with the funds that the dollars are going into, and in my opinion, there is some wisdom, as I said, in doing that. There's a large demand for new schools in the southern end of the state because of our growth. And then in our more rural areas, there's aging buildings that still need to be taken care of for our responsibility. I do think that does tie into our responsibility for education. But the disappointing part is most of the vision of the I won't say all the legislature, but the folks I work with is for school choice, opening up the ability for parents to use their tax dollars to educate their children how they see fit. The governor's vision for school choice is just opening more charter schools, which is better than our traditional public schools, but still it's not exactly what we're looking to do.
Hey, Sage, it seems to me like, okay, you have this state mandate for public education. It's in our Constitution. But the part of the problem is that I'd say public education is a real social problem right now.
Indeed.
And
yes.
particularly for conservatives. Because what happened down in Boise is you had decades of farmers and cow ranchers and everything sending their kids to public schools, and then they turn out to be liberal. So in general, the public education system is discipling kids to vote against you in the Republican Party when they get older. And that's why Boise basically went purple. You look at the data, a lot of conservatives, I've been arguing with a guy recently, and he said Boise went liberal because the Californians moved in. But you look at the data, and the Boise went liberal because people that are moving in the state, actually moving into the state of Idaho, 4 out of 5 of those people are voting conservative.
More conservative than
So
the Boise residents.
So basically what we did was we home grew liberals in Boise and through the public school system to vote against you.
Kept us conservative.
And California is holding the line for us.
Yeah, that's bad.
I agree, gentlemen. I have a friend in Bonners Ferry when I first ran for this office, and he was running for the Senate, and he would get up publicly and say, we are funding our own demise through the public school system.
Wow.
And that's absolutely true. And that is one of my main motivating factors in trying to open up that school choice ability for parents, and knowing that it's a system against solid values and the morals that help build our country, but also it's against good education.
Yeah.
And it's really hard, though, when you go into these rural areas that identify patriotically with their school, because that is the focus of that community.
Right.
So that becomes the difficult discussion as we speak in the legislature. And
Yeah.
a lot of legislators will just default to their school boards and school districts. And if they say it's bad legislation, they'll vote against it. So that's been the battle over the years. And it's still going to go on. We're trying to do an education tax credit. So rather than a savings account or a voucher system, this will just be a tax credit, and that's easily verifiable through the children on your tax return and the school rolls, or whether or not that you deserve that. And I think that's a better way to go, but it's still going to be a battle.
Sage,
Can you put your camera back down for me, Sage?
yeah, keep it towards the
sorry.
top of your head. That's all right. So I'm working on a school choice bill. I'm having a hard time with like the tax credit bills, although maybe you can explain it to me in a better way. But what I'm trying to avoid is like the socialism thing, where we send money to the state sends it back to us for school choice. What my proposal, I'm working on with some other guys, some other legislators, is that it's a property tax proposal, where if I want to send my kids to private school, then I just keep the money from my property tax that would have gone to the public school, and I just get to keep it. It's actually saves the state a lot of money too, because that's only if your average property tax bill, let's say, is $300 and 50% of that goes to public schools in your community, then I would actually just keep that $150 to send to my kids' private education, which would end up being $1,500 by the end of the year. It's not very much, but what it does is it start to untangle kind of that socialism cycle. And in addition, starts to, I think, disciple people on how to think about property taxes in their own house. Does that make sense?
Right.
What I proposed?
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that's something that I've poked around at since I've been down here, as far as a user fee. Whereas your retired folks don't have anybody in that system. Those of us at homeschool or private school don't have anybody in that system.
Right.
So it should more primarily be funded by the people that are using that system. And so that's similar to what you're saying. I like that idea. That's a good idea.
You're welcome.
Now, how far we can get with that idea is a different discussion.
Yeah, I'm always surprised. I don't know. Maybe there's something about Idaho that you can help me understand better, Sage. But I'm always surprised. I mean, being there's a deep streak of like kind of a libertarian streak in Idaho. Like don't touch our guns. I mean, I just think of that as being something that's like red blooded. And so I'm always surprised when it's like. Why can't it be a winning strategy to say we should pay for the schools that we want to use? I should not be forced to pay for schools that I don't want to use for my kids. I think you are free to pay for those schools that you want to use.
I'm not asking you to pay for my guns.
Why? And I appreciate what you're talking about there too when you mentioned like small schools and small towns. Yeah. And I know like in those small towns, like the school kind of probably is the hub of the community.
It's the rallying point. Yeah.
But why not just on almost like purely libertarian principles? Can we not just say people should pay for the schools they want to use? So in the small town, you pay for your small town school. If it's working, fine. It's working for you. But if I don't want to send my kids to Moscow High, then I don't have to send money to Moscow High. I send money to my local classical Christian school. Why doesn't that work, Sage?
They won't probably use these explicit terms, but they fall back on the social contract idea, meaning that this is good for the community and we're providing an education for everybody's children. And so therefore we all should participate in that we all benefit from that, as I've had these discussions, because I'm fully on board with what you're saying. We homeschooled all our children, so we've not participated in that system. But I think that's a lot of it. What it is their argument is that we, as a state, derive a benefit from the state educating all those children, and therefore our tax dollars should continue to fund that.
Right.
And just all the arguments you're saying and other things I've brought out have really fallen on deaf ears. I think there's a different dynamic in the eastern part of the state and southern part of the state, where they're far more comfortable with their school districts and public education than we are in the central and northern part of the state. And that plays into it once you're down here in the legislature as well. Yeah. I mean, it all makes sense logically what you're saying, but they always fall back on that, social contract portion of it, and then the patriotic and community hub type part of it.
So, Sage, there seems to me that there's like this divide happening among the Republican Party in Idaho. and maybe some of this is comparable a little bit what's going on nationwide in the Republican Party, but you have, for lack of better terms, you have like your old guard and your new guard Republicans. And the old guard doesn't like the new guard doesn't like the old guard. And the old guard, some people would maybe, use some of the terminology like the old guard's the rhinos. The new guard's got, a lot of angst in them, for lack of better words. But it seems like there's a real division. Brad Little versus, Raul Labrador versus
wasn't
the chair of the Republican Party,
chair,
Dorothy Moon versus still the previous chair, Tom Luna. You really have this division that seems to me happening. What's your take on that?
There definitely is a division, and it's been growing. As I've watched this and participated in it, a lot of it started with the Ron Paul movement about 14 years ago when folks started getting into the central committees, because that was what Ron Paul was, his model was in order to change the Republican Party. But that's actually shifting. It's not shifting. You still have that more new strain, as you were describing, but now we have a whole crop of new legislators that are following kind of that old guard, as you described it. And there's these two factions that are becoming ensconced now that seem to be more interested in fighting each other than discussing the merits of legislation on its own issues, or its own merits there. So that's a little bit of the pessimism I came into this session with, and being in leadership and trying to govern the body a little bit. That's growing, gentlemen. It's not going to be going away. And some of the behavior from the new folks that you described has driven a strong push from the other side. And there's dollars coming in from outside of the state, and they have their own little caucus now. And I think that's what a lot of that battle, I hope I'm wrong, but I think that's what a lot of the battle is going to be in the legislature this year because of the election as well. Everybody trying to do kind of a gotcha thing or get somebody on record for something, and not really looking at what's best for their constituency or the state.
Well, my take a little bit on this is that part of my problem, I wouldn't consider myself old guard or new guard. I think my sympathies are more with the new guard than with the old guard. But part of the problem I have in this discussion is, let's say when I have a conversation with the new guard, they don't take responsibility for anything that new guard is doing is wrong. Yeah. And then I have the same discussion with like the old guard. I'm like, Brad Little shut down churches in Idaho, and they're like, yeah. Right. It's like no one wants to really like analyze themselves and have a hard conversation with Brad's been pretty awful. And the old guard, I'm in this conversation with this one guy right now. It's been going on for the last 3 weeks, and I bring up all these things, and it's like, nah, no big no. And then he turns to the new guard. Well, Dorothy Moon's awful. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, we're never going to get anywhere with this conversation.
Yeah, people, first of all, which you said, they don't self-examine, which is a fine principle as a believer that we should be doing constantly, is examining why we're doing things in relation to Christ. But secondly, it's groupthink and the factionalism that, as I've looked at this from a political philosophy standpoint, and just what our founders were saying and why our government is structured the way it is to try and defray some of that factionalism, but they're serving a group when they're just saying, Little's on my team, therefore nothing he does is wrong, or Dorothy's on my team, nothing she does is wrong. Instead of thinking about it logically, we've lost a lot of critical thinking, primarily because of the public school issue.
That's true.
So much for those schools. Sage,
yes.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask another question.
Go ahead.
Sage, what just in terms of what are you seeing? This is the first week, finishing a first week of legislative session. What are you seeing coming up for you for us in Idaho? What are you
excited about?
Yeah, there's two prongs. One is what are you excited about? What are you hoping to accomplish? And then are there any other particular big fights that you're anticipating that we should all be aware of?
Okay, I think the big fights are somewhat of what we talked about before. It's going to be the battle about school choice still, and the governor's version of school choice. We in the House populated our House Education Committee with folks that turned out to be very pro-public school. And so we got very little done last year with the school choice issue there through that policy committee. And that's another reason that drove the effort towards a tax credit, because anything that's education policy related will have to go through that committee. And it's still the same people on that committee. So going through the Revenue and Taxation Committee has a little bit better option. But Whether the governor signs something, if we get something through there and through the Senate, is a different issue because of their focus on charter schools, which again is better than nothing, but it's not exactly what we're trying to achieve.
Right.
The speaker wants to do another reduction in income tax, very minimal, but just to make us in the top 5 of the nation as far as our flat tax goes. But that's still going to be a battle because of all the little programs that the governor had that he wanted to do. Probably that funding on the facilities funding for schools will be a battle as well. And there's always something little that pops up that I may not know about right now as we get into it. I think there'll be more election law. We've had some difficulty further north than you guys. I don't know if you've had it down there, but with people being kind of confronted as they're going to the polls by different groups. And they're just outside of that 100-foot radius that we have in statute now, but still they're impeding somebody from going to the polls. And my goal is to drive people to the polls to get rid of the online voting, which is where I think we're going essentially. But if they're being confronted at the polls and they're not going to show up to the polls, and that kind of defeats some of the other efforts that are being made.
I'm confused.
I'm sorry, you were going to say something?
Yeah, no. Are you telling me that there are people 100 foot outside the radius that are physically stopping? How are they prohibiting folks from getting to the polls?
So it happened at churches. And when a church has a large parking lot, then that 100-foot radius only goes so far, but they'll be at the edge of the driveway, and they'll be stopping people and throwing their rat cards in there or saying, vote for me. Candidates were out there doing it last time. And it happened over Bonner County, and it happened in Kootenai County as well, and in Boundary. So I think it may just be those 3 counties. And then down here in the South, I've had people telling me that the other side of the political spectrum, the Reclaim Idaho folks, were out there trying to gather signatures at the polls and confronting people like that as well. So I want to tighten that up a little bit because I'm thankful people are doing their civic duty, but I don't want them to be turned off and to not do that and look to do it by staying at home, because I think that's dangerous.
Wow. Sage, really appreciate you serving our state. Thank you for your time with us.
Yes.
Yeah. And I hope we can talk again, maybe at some point during the legislative session.
Love that.
Check in with you and see how it's going. And maybe you can give us some better news.
Lord willing, I would love to.
Thank you,
and I'll be
Sage.
happy to talk with you again, gentlemen. Thanks for the work you're doing. I appreciate it as well.
Thank you, Sage.
Thank you for coming on CrossPolitic. All right, if
Lord
you're
bless.
single, get married. If you're married, have you some kids. And if you have kids, go baptize them. Until next week, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is CrossPolitic.
You sit in church week after week, embracing the truth of God's word. You believe the gospel and claim Jesus Christ as your Lord. Yet you continue to struggle with pornography. You feel like a hypocrite, returning to the sin you hate that mocks the God you love. You desperately wonder, is lasting freedom even possible? Yes, you can overcome pornography, but not alone. 2 Timothy 2:22 says, "Now flee from youthful lusts and pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace with those who call on the Lord from a pure heart." Only by repeatedly running from sin to Christ with other believers can you hope to enjoy lasting freedom. You can live with purity and integrity. Take courage, seek accountability, and do whatever is necessary. Get equipped at accountable2you.com.